Hi everybody and welcome to our Apprenticeship Service webinar. Today we're going to be looking at the latest developments on the growth and skills offer and some of the corresponding Apprenticeship Service developments. And our session today is specifically aimed at training providers. My name is Nick Duff from the Service Engagement team, and I'll be looking after you today and doing the hosting. The plan that we have today for you is that we're going to run through some of the latest policy developments on 4 areas. So there's foundation apprenticeships, shorter apprenticeships, so effectively looking at the changes to minimum apprenticeship duration, to level 7, and also to short courses. And that way, once you've heard that input, you'll be up to date with all of the recent announcements and understand some of the policy context for some of those developments that we're taking account of into the apprenticeship service. What we'll do then is we'll run through some of those changes that you'll see in the apprenticeship service accounts, paying particular attention to the new foundation apprenticeships. So what we'll do is we'll show you how foundation apprenticeships are shown in Find Apprenticeship Training. We'll show you how you can use Recruit an Apprentice and Find an Apprenticeship to take on new foundation apprenticeships. And then we'll have a look at the new developments that let you add details into your apprenticeship service account from your individualised learner records, or ILR, and how employers then approve those details. We'll then have a Q&A session and we'll look at some of the questions that you've got, and then after that we'll spend a few minutes just having a bit of a forward look at some of the upcoming developments within the service. Okay, so I've got a big gang of people with me today to do the presentation. So I've got Helen Kempley, who will be giving us the policy update. Then I've got Chris McLean, Jane Farrington, Siji Odenlami, Perdip Nahal, and Hannah Atkinson, who will be covering off some of the apprenticeship service developments. And then I've got Mary Evans, who will be giving us an insight into the future AS developments in her future look. So big welcome to all of you, and I think we're ready to start. So I'm handing over to Helen. So Helen, if you're ready, I'll let you take it on.
Thanks very much, Nick. And hello, everyone. I'm Helen, and I'm head of Growth and Skills Levy Programme Strategy. As Nick mentioned, I'm going to talk about the policy context today. The government has announced a number of policy changes on apprenticeships over the past year, which I will briefly set out today. Firstly, shorter duration apprenticeships. Previously, apprenticeships had to have a duration of at least 12 months, but we have recognised that there are circumstances where a learner can achieve full occupational competence more quickly. Employers have said for a long time they would like more flexibility here. So to support this, we have reduced the minimum duration in legislation to 8 months, so that shorter apprenticeships are possible from this month, August 2025. Full occupational competence and the high quality standard of provision associated with the apprenticeship brand will still be a minimum requirement. This means training can be delivered and completed more quickly where that makes sense, either because that's how industry works or because an individual has significant prior learning that would have previously made them ineligible for apprenticeship training. So this can mean condensed apprenticeships, the same content but delivered more intensively, with the delivery model aligned to labour market norms, for example, seasonal workers or the academic year. Shorter apprenticeships, where some content can be removed without impacting the learner's ability to achieve full occupational competence. And accelerated apprenticeships, where learners have relevant prior learning, the duration can be reduced to a new minimum of 8 months, as there is no longer a 12-month floor. We have confirmed that the first shorter apprenticeships with a published typical duration of less than 12 months are dual fuel smart meter installer, healthcare support worker, production assistant screen and audio, and postgraduate teacher. And we will continue to work with employers and Skills England to identify where this new flexibility will create other opportunities. Secondly, foundation apprenticeships. We know that many young people have not been able to access the opportunity of an apprenticeship, and that apprenticeship starts for young people have fallen significantly in recent years. The government wants to rebalance the system so that more young people are supported to access apprenticeships. A key step is the introduction of foundation apprenticeships from this month, which will give young people a foot in the door at the start of their working lives, while supporting the pipeline of new talent that employers need. In May, we announced further detail on foundation apprenticeships. They are for young people aged 16 to 21 and up to 25 for those with an education, health and care plan, or who are a care leaver, prisoner or prison leaver. They are a job with training aligned to a foundation occupation, with off-the-job training and a minimum duration of 8 months. They are set at level 2. They have a broader focus than existing apprenticeships, and they cover employability behaviours and skills, as well as the technical knowledge and skills needed for the job. The first wave of foundation apprenticeships from this month are available in construction, engineering and manufacturing, digital and health and care, and they're all listed on the slide there. Employers can receive an incentive of up to £2,000 to help with the costs of taking on one of these foundation apprentices. This is on top of the existing incentives and arrangements, such as the exemption from national insurance contributions for some apprentices. In May, we also announced changes to Level 7 apprenticeships. As I mentioned just now, apprenticeship starts by young people have fallen significantly in recent years. For young people under 25, they fell by almost 40% over the last decade. At the same time, in recent years, we have spent around 99% of the apprenticeships budget. Therefore, the government wants to ensure that public funding is prioritised towards those at the start of their working lives and at lower apprenticeship levels. It has decided to no longer fund Level 7 apprenticeships except for young apprentices under the age of 22 when they start their apprenticeship, and those under 25 who are care leavers or have an education, health and care plan. This will take effect from the 1st of January 2026. All current Level 7 apprentices and any who start before 1st of January 2026 will be funded through to completion. This decision was informed by a wide range of evidence, including from Skills England and a wide range of stakeholders, and this was weighed up against the government's clear priorities. Finally, in June, we announced in the industrial strategy that we will introduce short courses funded through the Growth and Skills Levy, with the first wave available in April 2026. We will work with Skills England to determine the courses which will be prioritised in the first wave of rollout and subsequent waves, and how those sit alongside apprenticeships and other training routes. This new flexible offer will be for targeted training that is shorter than an apprenticeship that meets employers' critical skills needs. We are developing a detailed specification and will test this with employers and providers. I know you will be keen to hear more about this. There isn't a great deal more I can say at the moment, but we will share more information in due course, and we will work to ensure this happens as soon as possible to allow employers, providers and learners to have time to prepare properly. And now I'll hand back to Nick. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Helen. Thanks very much for that. Thanks for giving us that policy context. Just say if anybody's got any questions, I'm starting to see a few questions come through already. If anybody's got any questions for Helen, then obviously please put them into that questions tab and we'll get to them during our Q&A session. Okay, so now that we've got that context, we're going to move on to have a look at some of the developments in the apprenticeship service that take account of some of those changes. And as I said, we're going to focus, I think, mainly on foundation apprenticeships for this. So up next, we've got Chris McLean. He's going to give us a demo of the updates in Find Apprenticeship Training that will help employers find you guys, find the training providers that can deliver foundation apprenticeships. So, Chris, are you ready?
I am, yes.
Yeah,
Hello
thank
everyone,
you.
Chris McLean. I'm a product owner at the Apprenticeship Service. So I'm going to do a demo of Find Apprenticeship Training from the employer's perspective of how they search and find for a foundation apprenticeship and choose a provider. But before I do, just a couple of notes really, is that, as Helen said, so foundation apprenticeships are live this month. There are some training providers who've added them to their account to basically their portfolio of delivery. Any training provider can do that. You don't need any particular dispensation to deliver foundation apprenticeships. I won't show you a demo of how you add it to managing standards in your account. It's exactly the same as you do for any other standard, and it's very intuitive. Every single foundation apprenticeship, of which I think there's 7, all have foundation in the name, so it's dead easy. The other things I wanted to mention is just very quick, slightly off topic, is that whilst we were doing the user research for how we would present foundation apprenticeships to users in Find Apprenticeship Training and managing standards, there was a lot of feedback about things that we could do to improve. And just to let you know that this month there's a couple of changes coming live for training providers where you can delete training venues from your account, because obviously businesses move on, details move on, addresses move on, that type of thing. And also you can update the contact details for specific standards as opposed to just using a generic contact detail. That should be live before the end of the month. So if you hand me the screen, I will now do a demo for Find Apprenticeship Training.
While we're just changing the screen, it's worth pointing out that in the employer webinar yesterday, there were a number of employers that commented about how up to date some of the details were in Find Apprenticeship Training. So if you've got updates that you can put in to your offer, then please do make sure it's as up to date as possible, because it is, employers are using it and are commenting on it. Okay.
Took
the
a little while
screen
to get
should be
going,
coming now.
should be on.
Yeah, there it is.
Yeah, okay. Right, so Find Apprenticeship Training, as I'm sure you all know, is the service which employers use to find the provision that you provide. So I'll just show you how foundation apprenticeships fits within the service. So I'll do a quick search and just type foundation. We do find that most people searching for training tend to use an address or a location, and it's one of the big changes we made this year that makes it a lot easier for employers. I'll put it in anyway, but we do have obviously only a small amount of provision this week, which is going live. So what we find is we've used a text search there. We've got 10 results. There's actually only 7 foundation apprenticeships, but these will have something in the metadata in the text which suggests that it might be of interest to the user. So as I said before, every foundation apprenticeship has the word foundation in the title, and the results in Find Apprenticeship Training have this tag foundation, so they should be able to find it. So if we take out that initial search and we go back to basically every standard there, you've got 821. One of the new things which we've introduced is this filter here, which is apprenticeship type. So you can see you've got a foundation apprenticeship and what we're just calling a normal apprenticeship standard. So if we click on foundation and filter, we should get the 7 foundation. Yep, there they are. If we go through another route, let's just say we go back to the search. We're not particularly interested in the foundation as such, but let's just say we choose construction. You've got 119 results. That's all of the standards within the construction pathway. If we go back to the filter and filter foundation, then we should get 3 results. So 3 of the 7 foundation apprenticeships are within the construction pathway. And we see they only new this week, but we've got 1 training provider here. And if we go back to take the construction out, we'll get all the courses. there are several providers who's already signed up to deliver. Not every course has got training providers yet, but I imagine this will change over the coming days and weeks. So if we look at the course itself, just like a normal standard, it's got a course details page. For this particular one, we haven't got any providers yet. But the things that have changed, it's not a lot, but it's the things that which employees were interested in when we did the user testing, is we've got the incentive payment shown here. And the other thing is worth noting is the knowledge, skills and behaviours. As Helen mentioned, we've now got technical knowledge, technical skills and the employability skills. And I know from our testing, speaking to employers, really this employability skills was the thing that they were interested in foundation apprenticeships. I think that's good. So if we go now, how you would actually find a training provider. So there's the course that you want. See, we are a little bit stuck in that there's not a lot of training providers in. But let's just choose this one. So we've got 2 training providers there. And you probably saw that a couple of months ago, we released changes where you can filter on achievement rate, change the location, that type of thing. Doesn't quite, not quite needed at the minute because we haven't got as much training providers, but this just works exactly the same as it would for normal standard. Click into the provider, you see all the usual data that you would get. None of that is different to what you would see from a normal standard. And that's it. That's how an employee would find a foundation apprenticeships. So I think you can take the screen back, Joe.
Okay, excellent. Thank you very much, Chris. Really good to see that. I like the little pink tags to indicate foundation apprenticeships that are on there. Okay, so we are now moving on to the next part of our call, webinar. So we'll have Jane and Siji, so Jane Farrington, Product Manager, and Siji Abdulami, who are going to come and talk to us about the Recruit Apprentice and find an apprenticeship function that's been changed for foundation apprenticeships. So they'll run through the demo and take us through that next part of the journey. Okay, so Joe, I think you're handing over control to Siji at the minute, and Jane, I think you're going to introduce it. So Jane, over to you.
Yeah, hi everyone. Thanks for joining the webinar today. As Nick said, I'm Jane Farrington and I'm a product manager and I look after recruit and find an apprenticeship. And I know you're all familiar with our recruit area of the apprenticeship service. Today, our amazing tester Siji is going to run us through the account and show us how to create a vacancy for a foundation apprenticeship. It's very similar to a normal vacancy, so we're going to use a draft one to save going through the whole journey, but we will highlight the differences for you. So I'm going to hand over to you, Sij. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Jane. Good morning, all. As Jane's mentioned, I have what I will be doing is to walk you through how we create vacancies, not in full detail. I will present a draft vacancy which I have prepared with all the details you would go through for a foundation. So, firstly, what I want to show is highlight what has already been mentioned. It is the pink foundation tag, which displays when you select a foundation or where the courses are displayed. As you may be familiar, when going through creating an apprenticeship vacancy, you do have to complete the task list. Within that task list sits the training course. So if I went into the training course, you'll be able to come here and search, foundation, if you wanted to, and it'll present to you a list of foundation courses. Or if you know what specific one you're looking for, let's say, for example, software, you can look and it will be a level 2 one where it does say foundation and software and data foundation apprenticeship. So anything along those lines. Upon selection, you would get a confirmation screen with your foundation tag as well, highlighting to you that it is a foundation course. And also the typical duration as well as 8 months. And also a flag mentioning that it is a foundation apprenticeship. If I save and continue that. I will return back to task list just to show you a few more things. What we also made changes to is in the requirements and prospects section, we removed the option to enter skills and qualifications when doing a foundation, as you are not required to have any skills or qualifications because of the criteria required for a foundation, which I will mention to you shortly. So if we proceed to check your answers and then submit, that would go through a QA process at that point, and then before it then goes live. If I were to show you an example of a live vacancy, what it would look like within FAA, which you can also see a preview of what that would be. It will be presented to you in this format, and this is what it would look like in Find an Apprenticeship as well. So that pink foundation tag is consistent across all the service, and then information about who and how you can apply. So foundation apprenticeships are introductory courses that help young people get started in an industry. You do not need to have any specific qualifications or experience to apply. So anyone between 16 and 21 can start a foundation apprenticeship. If you're between 22 and 24, you can start if you have an EHC plan or in care or have been in care or in prison or have been in prison. So those are the conditions that are required to apply for a foundation apprenticeship. It is not available to anyone above 25. As well, I think that will be it on foundations. The other thing that I believe Jane wanted to cover as well was sharing applications, where you share your applications with an employer.
Yeah, and just on the foundation apprenticeships, when somebody, an end user, a potential apprentice, logs into FAA, we store their date of birth for them before they apply for a vacancy. So the content that Siji showed you there is dynamic. So anybody aged between 16 and 21 will see that information and that content. If you are aged between 22 and 24, you see slightly different content. And if you're aged 25 or over, then the apply button is not functional. So we are filtering out people who cannot apply for a foundation at the beginning of their journey. So you shouldn't see anyone coming through that has applied for any vacancies that are over the age of 25. Thanks, Sig.
You're welcome.
And just while I've got you on, and I know it's not around the foundation work or growth and skills, but we just wanted to highlight in the area of your recruit where we can share applications with employers. Now, we've been doing quite a bit of work on this, and we've made some iterations and improvements to this area. So what I would urge you, if you are using our recruit service, to please use it. Please let us know if there's anything that you would like changing that doesn't work or that you are finding arduous. But I do believe that if you go in and use the service, you will see some changes, and it will reduce the friction of you sharing your applications with an employer, because you can share them directly through our service and they can mark them as interviewing or reviewed or whatever they need to do, and we can give feedback through the service. So I just wanted to highlight that area that we have been doing work on there, and please go and have a look at it and use it to share some applications. I think that's it from us. So we're handing back to you, Nick. Thank you very much.
Cool. Yeah, thank you, Jane. Is there a way of providers giving feedback? Is there a place they can go to give that feedback?
There is feedback on the service. At the bottom of the page, you can provide feedback. Yeah.
Okay,
There's
so they can
also
use the
support
link through.
tickets. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Thank you.
So, support tickets as well, so they can raise that through the support desk.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Thank you, Jane. Okay, so now we're moving on. Yeah, thanks, Jane. Thanks, Siji. So what we do now is, now we've been through the recruitment process, and then hopefully if we've gone through that, we've identified an apprentice that you want to start. So what we want to show you now is some of the improvements and simplifications that have been made into your account to help you guys add the apprentice details into the apprenticeship service. So we've got Perdip and Hannah. They're going to talk us through the new option where you can add apprentice details, or for that matter, I guess foundation apprentice details as well, onto the service using data taken directly from your ILR. And they'll show you how the employers will still be controlling that journey by giving their approval at the end. So I think Perdip, I think I'm coming to you next.
Yeah, thank you very much, Nick. Okay, and good afternoon, everyone. I'm Perdip Nahal, Product Manager for the Apprenticeship Service, in the Apprenticeship Service for the Add Apprentice Approvals journeys. So I'll be giving an update on the work my team has been doing to simplify adding new apprentices and related approvals process, which also applies to the new foundation apprenticeships. What you see on this slide gives an overview of adding new apprentices and payments to providers. The current service requires employers to enter apprentice details unless providers have been given permission or received an apprentice request from the employer. The details entered in the apprenticeship service requires approval from both employer and providers to access funding. Subsequently, as you can see on the bottom row, the providers will input the apprentice details into the individual learner record, which must be submitted to the Department for Education on a monthly basis. It is essential that the data in both the apprenticeship service and the ILR match, otherwise discrepancies referred to as data locks may occur. So analysis conducted in the previous year revealed that there was 243,384 records that had data mismatches, resulting in £40.7 million worth of withheld funding, and that impacted 91% of providers. These records require resolution, including reapproval of apprentice records by employers. So our support teams are also impacted by this, where they received 3,612 related inquiries in a 12-month period, seeking assistance to resolve data locks and release funds for training delivered to apprentices. Okay, and as you see on this slide here, to simplify the current design for new starts, we will implement changes that streamline the creation of apprentice requests. The new approach will be provider-led, utilising the ILR learner data submitted to the DfE as a single source of truth, with the approval process remaining unchanged. This adjustment will no longer require double entry of data from providers, reducing the administrative burden, also helping minimise data locks, simplify the approvals process, and facilitate timely release of funds to providers. Ultimately, this will enable our users to focus more on training and upskilling apprentices while running their business. Okay, so many of you may have seen already the new solution, designed, tested and developed in collaboration with providers, was officially launched on 30th of June. It is now being successfully used by providers with the appropriate permissions, alongside employers submitting apprentice requests to add apprentices. And by leveraging the ILR data as a single source of truth, the solution has delivered 100% success rate in apprentice requests with zero data locks, marks significant progress towards a more streamlined, integrated, automated user journey. I'll now hand over to Hannah, who will demonstrate the new solution and highlight the changes employers will see when they receive the apprentice request for ILR.
Thanks, Perdip. Hopefully you can see my screen there. My name's Hannah. I'm a content designer on the streams of work that look at the Add an Apprentice journey for employers and providers. I'm just going to give you a quick demo of how you can use the Add Apprentice using the ILR. So just on your homepage here, you'll go to Add New Apprentices. And then as you can see here, there's now an additional option, which is to select learners from ILR. So I'm going to go ahead and select that one. And you can, for the time being, you can still upload via CSV or manually if you wish to. You can add to an existing cohort. So that's a cohort you've set up and saved as a draft, or your employer has, or you can create a new cohort. I'm going to create a new cohort for this demo. You choose your employer as you normally would. For this, we're going to choose Bambino's Day Nursery. And then you confirm your employer as you do now. And then here is where we select the learner from the ILR. And these learners will be those who've been linked to Bambino's Day Nursery in the ILR and those who haven't been linked to any employer. And you'll only see learners that are within the 3-month reservation window. You can search for a name or ULN and use any of these filters here to help you narrow it down. And I'm going to go ahead and select Alan. If you have a reservation set up, you can choose it here, or you can create a new reservation. If you have no reservation set up, you can automatically reserve funds. If your employer is using a different kind of funding, transfer, for example, then they'll continue to set that up their side for the time being. So I'm going to create a new reservation here. And then we'll check the details for Alan Lightfoot. So the difference is here that you can't edit these details in the service anymore. If there are some that you can change, so you can change the email address if for some reason it might be different to what's in the ILR, or you haven't added it in the ILR. And you can also add the standard option, as you can now. And you can also add a reference if you want to. But any of the details that you wish to change at this point, you would need to resubmit your files to the ILR, and then it would automatically update in the apprenticeship service. You can also add your RPL details in the service as well. So for this one, we'll just add in some sample details. And this is the same as it is now. And then it will let you know that you've added the details, and then this record should be complete and ready to confirm. And then here on the approved page, you can check all the details. You can go back in and review and change those details that I highlighted, or you can remove, and you can also add another apprentice here, and you just go back to that list and add another one that way. And then you'll approve it here. You can leave a message to your employer if you want to, and then we'll save and submit. And then you'll get a confirmation screen to let you know that that's all happened. And then what happens for the employer, I'll quickly show you what it looks like for them. They will go to apprentices, they'll go to their apprentice requests, and those requests that you've sent through will sit in here for them. So they just need to go to view details, have a check. They can view the details as well. They can't change anything except adding a reference if they want to for themselves. And then they can either approve them and notify you, the provider, or they can request changes. So they can leave a message if they've spotted something that's not quite right. They can leave you a message and send that over, and you'll be able to update it on your side. So we're going to approve this one, save and submit, and then those details have now been approved. I think it's back over to you, Perdit.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Hannah. Okay, so as just saying, brilliantly demonstrated by Hannah, the introduction of the new features, while retaining existing functionality, helps maintain user familiarity and significantly accelerates the approvals process. Apprentice requests using the ILR data have resulted in a 2-fold increase in approval rates compared to the manual process, and whilst also reducing the administrative burden on users. So making apprentice details read-only, as you've seen in the demo there, and we'll be doing that for the ILR-based request, will help preserve the integrity of the ILR data. This will be followed by the removal of the manual add option for both providers and employers, further reducing the risk of data locks. So please note there is no change to the process for reserving funds for non-levy employers, so this should still continue to be done in advance where possible. Okay, and we have gone through user testing and research sessions, so we are continuously iterating on improving the usability of the new Select Learner from ILR page. We're acting on feedback from user testing, so we have increased the number of records on each page to 50. and we'll review that and maybe increase that further where we get that feedback as it requires. And in the process of adding start date column, filters and highlighting records have been updated in the ILR. In the coming months, you will also see the option as seen on this design here to select multiple ILR learners. Okay, and as you can see on this slide here, so just to recap and to help get the most benefit from the updated and streamlined add apprentice process, providers must either have permission from the employer to add apprentices or receive an add apprentice request from the employer. Apprentice details should be included in the ILR as early as possible to ensure submission during the guarantee collection period. Just to iterate, I think there's a couple of questions that come in there. So the start date can be up to 12 months in the future. So we do recommend submit these early as possible to allow time for approvals. However, if it is a non-levy employer, you won't see the starts for beyond the reservations window, as Hannah mentioned. New apprentice learner records will appear in the provider's account within 20 minutes of the ILR submission. Providers should use the new option to add learners from the ILR. Apprentice requests can be created or updated at any time and sent to the employer for approval. And any changes required to apprentice details must be made in the ILR, as it's now the single source of truth. Okay, and I will now hand back to Nick.
Thanks, Perdip, and big thank you to Helen, Chris, Jane, Siji, Perdip, and Hannah for your inputs. I think that's really detailed and sort of some of the points quite insightful. So let's have a look at some of the questions that have come in for today, and thank you guys for submitting questions. We've got quite a few to go through, and I think we're going to struggle to get through all of them as I thought at the beginning, but we'll pull out some of the key points if I can. So the first couple of questions I think are for you, Helen, and I'm guessing this one relates to level 7s. It says, are postgraduate teachers from the 1st of August too?
Hi, Nick. So I think that's actually about shorter duration apprenticeships, because that's one of the 4 that I mentioned. So yes, the minimum duration of the postgrad teaching apprenticeship will be shortened from 12 to 9 months from this month, August 2025.
Okay, cool. And then in terms of shorter apprenticeships, there's a question about if the apprentice is 16 to 18, the employer can't get the second incentive payment as they're not on programme for on days 365. Are there any plans to change this?
So yes, we had this question yesterday as well. So the answer is to ensure that employers and providers don't miss out on receiving additional payments for younger apprentices and care leavers completing a shorter duration apprenticeship. The final instalment will be paid early on day 242.
Okay, thank you. And still with you. So there's a question about English and maths aligning with 16 to 18 provision. So can it be expanded upon? About the English and maths aligning with the 16 to 18 provision?
Yes, and I think this one is about foundation apprenticeships because it was on the slide for those. So 16 to 18-year-olds without a level 1 or level 2 English and maths must continue to study them, but they don't need to pass them to achieve their foundation apprenticeship. They just need to study a minimum number of hours. So I hope that answers that question.
Cool, thank you. And then I guess it's not really fair to ask this question, but there's been quite a few questions about short courses and their makeup and when we're going to find out more information and what the specification is going to be. I'm guessing the answer is we're still working through that. We have no more information to give, but I just wanted to raise it because there were so many questions.
Yeah.
Would that be the case?
No, absolutely, and I'm glad you did because I wanted to say yes, they're all good questions. I'm afraid I can't answer them at the moment. As I said, we are developing the specification at the moment, and as soon as we can share the answers to those questions, we will do. And I noted that somebody said that you need as much time as possible and sort of reinforce that point, which we absolutely hear. And I think the testing of the specification, I think it will be fairly soon, but I can't say exactly when. So I hope I know that doesn't answer the questions, but that's all I can say at the moment.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say that as soon as we have something to say, we're aware that providers need to know as soon as possible. So we'll get something out as quickly as we can. Okay. Thank you for that clarification. Another one for you, Helen. There's a question here that says, did you say that if apprentices start at 22 or below, they can be funded? So there's working with a training provider that has an integrated degree that spans from level 4 through to level 7. There's a question about if applicants apply for this at 19 to 20 to start at level 4. What does it say? It goes on to say that it will it allow them to be funded for the level 7 as well?
So no, you need to be under 22 when you start on the level 7 apprenticeship, or under 25 for the if you're a care leaver or have an EHCP.
Okay, thank you. And then a couple of questions that have come up about is the webinar being recorded, going to be published on the YouTube channel? Yes, it will. It'll also be on the GoToWebinar webinar platform where you all registered on demand for a number of weeks as well. So look out for it there, and I'll give you the details of that as we get towards the end of the session. So Jane, I've got a couple of questions for you if I can. Is the intro summary on the advert, so I'm guessing this is an RAA, already put there by you, or do providers have to write that in?
I think they're talking about what's visible in Find an Apprenticeship.
Oh, okay.
So if it's foundation, if you've advertised as a provider for a foundation apprenticeship, when you view your live advert, the information I showed you at the top of the page, which is the content that says about the age and the eligibility, that is pre-populated on every advert, whether they're 16 to 22 or 22 to 24 or over 25s. We populate that content, and so you don't need to worry about it. That will be visible on every advert.
Okay, and I'm going to stop guessing where things are then now and just defer to the subject matter experts and let them tell me where it is. So a couple more questions again for you, Jane, if I can. How would we provide feedback with our experience of sharing employer applications with employers?
So I've just checked, there is a link at the bottom of the page in Recruit that asks for feedback. We do analyse that feedback every month. So I would urge you, if you've got any feedback, to go through that route and give us the feedback at the bottom of the page. If there are any problems, because I've seen some questions that are around employers not being able to view applicants' information in shared applications. If any problems like that occur, we do think we've fixed them. But if they are occurring, please raise it as a support issue so that we can investigate that quickly for you.
And that was absolutely going to be my next question, which is cool. So I'll move on then. So another question for you, Jane. Says, in relation to sharing vacancies with employers, they've got an employer who's unable to see some of the applications. From my end, so the provider's end, they're unable to see the applications too. And this is all done after that it's been shortlisted. Is that the same issue?
It is the same issue, but I will highlight, as a provider, if you're managing the recruitment, you should be seeing the applicant's information, i.e. their names. When it's shared with an employer, the employer does not see their names until they say they want to interview, because it's anonymized. As soon as they select them for interviewing, then they get the information. So it could be that your employers are not selecting interview when they're opening the details.
Okay, thank you. Perdit, a couple of questions for you. So the question here, so will it eventually go to just ILR and not be able to enter data manually? So this is where you're adding an apprentice. Is that the case?
That is the model that we'll be moving to. So at the moment, users will see that the ILR option and manually add option is there, but we will be looking to remove the manually add option, as that is where a lot of the data locks are created from where they enter into the apprenticeship service, and the data does match the ILR. But in the meantime, both journeys and options are there.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
I'd recommend using the ILR option.
Yeah. Cool. And then there's a question there that's sort of linked. So I guess this is about which comes first. So there's the providers are saying that they thought that apprentices needed to be added to the apprenticeship service before they input them onto the ILR. I'm assuming you're going to say that's not the case.
Absolutely. So the way that it has been working today is that the data will put into the apprenticeship service first to get the approval and agreement with the employer, and the ILR will be then submitted to submit learner data when the learner starts the apprenticeship. The ILR does allow future start dates up to 12 months. So it is a bit of a change in the behavior and the approach and the process, the way that providers are working. So what we would recommend is that get the data into the ILR as soon as you know the apprentice details and the start details. You can enter in the planned start date. And that detail will then filter through and come into the apprenticeship service. So it saves you having to, again, double data of entry in the apprenticeship service and doing in the ILR. So as soon as you've got the apprentice details, enter into the ILR, you'll have that information, the learner records in the apprenticeship service to do what you would have done previously.
Okay, then a couple more just for you, if I can. ILR has a planned end date, a planned end of learning date. So while in the apprenticeship service has always had the planned end program, which doesn't need to be entered into the ILR. How are you avoiding DLOC errors?
That's a really good question, and it has been raised by the employers as well. So our future design will move away from the training plan. I can't remember on top of my head, but the training planned end date, that's in the apprenticeship service, and in the ILR it's the learning planned end date. So in the funding rules as well, it does specify that the apprenticeship service includes the EPAA, and in the ILR that it doesn't. And we will be getting some comms out to clarify that for our users, that when the data comes from the ILR, it doesn't include the EPA period, but that should have any impact on the employers or the price in any way. So subsequently, as we move the manual led journey from the as an option, we will then clarify that as well, but we'll get some comms out in the interim.
Okay, cool, thank you. And then one last question for you, Perdip. If a levy transfer is being used, does that mean to say that the provider has to add the apprentice the old way, e.g. manually?
It doesn't have to be added manually. If it is a levy transfer funds that are going to be used, then the employer can create the apprentice request. They select the funding type as transfers and send that request to the provider. The provider can then add the learners. So it doesn't have to be details that have to be added manually. The cohort can request. It will need to be sent to the provider from the employer's account, and then the ILR learners can be added.
Okay, cool. I'm going to stop asking questions there, but what I will do is just quickly double check with my presenters to see if there's any burning topics that I've missed through the Q&A session that they want to go back to. Chris, was there anything from you?
There wasn't actually. I've looked through, yeah.
Okay, cool. Helen, any burning topic that I've missed?
No, not from me, thanks.
Jane?
Sorry, I was stuck on mute. No, I don't think so. Just to encourage people to let us know through feedback about the sharing applications.
Okay, thank you. And Perdip, anything I've missed? Any topic that really stands out that I've missed?
There's a couple of questions that have come up around the linking the learner to the employer in the ILR, use the agreement ID. So just to clarify, anyone that hasn't seen it in the provider technical manual support guidance, it is the contract reference number where the providers can put in the agreement ID. That is just an interim field that's being used, and we work with SLD and data collections around having the correct field going forwards from August 26. And within the service, we're still designing and testing what that journey looks like. So do bear with us just in the meantime. If you've read the guidance, you put in the agreement ID into the contract reference number field. You may not see anything happening in the provider account, but we will be coming on to that in our future look.
Cool, thank you. That's actually quite a nice little segue. So I'll wrap up the Q&A session there then. Thanks everybody for all of the questions that you've asked, and thank you guys for getting through as many as you did. As I've mentioned, we'll have a look at those and answer questions, and we'll get some points of clarification out by topic, and we'll email them around in 2 or 3 weeks' time. Okay, so moving on to the future look. Perdit, you don't get much of a rest because you're coming back on now. So we've gone through the policy, we've gone through the developments, and what we'll do is just spend a couple of minutes looking at a little bit into the future. So Perdit, you're back, and I think you're going to go through our thinking for the next series of changes in adding apprentice. I think some of it you already trailed already, and the employer approvals journey. So over to you, Perdit.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Nick. So yeah, as we've covered the new ILR-based option selection to select apprentices that went live on 30th of June, as well as the introduction of foundation apprenticeships at the end of July. As mentioned earlier, my team, they're actively working on enhancing the new Select Apprentice from ILR page. So I would encourage all providers still using the manual add option to try it out. We've also received highly positive feedback from curious CSV bulk upload users that have also tested the new option. So looking ahead, here's a summary of what's upcoming and future enhancements. So we're automating reservations to remove the need to manually reserve funds when adding apprentice details for non-levy paying employers. The team are working on that at the moment, so we should release that, and you should see that that enhancement comes through in the next couple of weeks. Both the ILR-based Add Apprentice journey and apprentice request will become read-only. That will help preserve ILR data, reduce data locks, speed up approvals, and timely payments. Users will soon be able to select multiple learners from the ILR list, so that will be especially beneficial for those using the CSV bulk uploads, and that will be aiming to give the equivalent functionality. Add apprentice options will be streamlined, with the manual add apprentice option being retired, making the ILR data the default and trusted single source of truth. There'll be ongoing ILR integration to design and test linking learners to employers in the ILR using the agreement ID, as mentioned earlier. We will also further leverage the ILR for approved learner data for managing apprentices. So again, reducing the need to update records in the Apprenticeship Service and lowering the risk of data locks. Looking ahead to August 26, we anticipate the inclusion of RPL data, recognition of prior learning, in the ILR, and that will remove the need for this data to be input into the Apprenticeship Service. And with all the Apprenticeship Service data captured in the ILR, with the exception of standard options, we will support, and we got the enhancement to select multiple learners. We anticipate the CSV bulk upload process will become redundant at that point. So the CSV bulk upload journey, that functionality will remain until August 26. Okay, I'll now hand back over to Nick.
Yeah, and I guess it's fair to say that with any date, particularly those that are that far ahead, they are markers rather than exact and precise, I guess, but dates that we're working towards nonetheless. Okay, cool. So if we move on to the next slide, Mary, it's been a while you've had to wait to do your part. So I'd like to introduce Mary Evans. Mary's our head of policy implementation. She'll be summing up the session so far and just spend a couple of minutes looking at some of the other things that are coming over the hill in the next few months in the Apprenticeship Service.
Fantastic, thank you, Nick, and good afternoon, everyone. So yes, before we finish today, I also just wanted to echo my thanks for all of the presenters in the session. So Helen, Chris, Jane and Siji, Perdip and Hannah, but also to Nick and Joe and the rest of the team, because I know there's been a huge amount of logistics that have gone into organising the event and making sure that it has run smoothly for us. So there's a lot of stuff that goes on behind the scenes. So thank you to everyone who has been involved. So hopefully today you've seen some great examples of the work that's been going on in the service to support the policy changes that you've heard about that have come in from this month. And we've also been busy working to try and simplify and improve the journeys for our users to hopefully make it sort of easier and less time consuming. But as well as that, we also, I just wanted to spend a few minutes giving you a bit of a forward look at some of the future changes that we're looking to make. this is something that we have previously done in terms of a sort of a roadmap of activity, and I know it's something that people have been asking about recently, so hopefully it's useful to give you sort of some early sight of some of the new things that are on the horizon. So I'm not going to sort of talk about the stuff that we've sort of delivered to date, because I think that's been sort of covered fairly comprehensively today. But just wanted to spend a couple of minutes just talking through some of the things that will be coming, hopefully, for the remainder of this year. So we're doing some work, we've been doing some work with checking apprentice eligibility through the employability checks with HMRC. So this is definitely something that we want to do some work to be able to share the outcome of that data with employers and providers through the service. We're also doing some work around levy transparency. We know that we want to try and give employers more information about how their levy funds are being spent, not just on their apprentices, but across the rest of the programme. So we're doing some work to look at introducing some more information for employers so that hopefully they'll have a better understanding of how it all sort of joins together. And as you've already heard from Perdip, we will later this year, sort of when we feel the time is right, be looking to remove the manually adding apprentice information through that process. And then looking forwards into next year, we've got sort of quite a few things that we're sort of thinking about now. We launched the Your Apprenticeship app earlier this year. So we are looking to, based on user feedback, we're looking to add some more features to that app to hopefully improve that. So that's obviously going to be a nice piece of work. We're also will be making changes to the service to support the functionality for the next stage of the growth and skills offer. So you've heard about that today. So we will be doing development in the service to support that. We're also looking at changes around the admin and assessor service. So there are going to be some sort of changes around apprenticeship assessment. So we want to be able to ensure that the services are supporting that in the best way possible. And we're also looking at doing something in the digital certification space. So hopefully that is a piece of work that we're in the early stages of thinking about in terms of how that might work for our apprentices. And then finally, sort of the big piece of work that we're looking at the moment is actually developing a new earnings calc within the apprenticeship service. So hopefully this will allow us to sort of respond more flexibly and more quickly to sort of future policy changes and adapt what we need to within the service. So that's quite a big piece of work that we're hoping we'll have more information on next year. So I hope that gives you a very quick flavour of some of the things that we're looking at doing over the coming months. But hopefully, and I think hopefully this is something that we might start doing a bit more regularly as well. So Nick, I think that's everything from me. So I'll hand you back to you for final comments.
Thanks, Mary. That's really helpful. And yeah, so as Mary says, there's stuff that's going on over the next 3 or 4 months, stuff that's going on into next year, and plans beyond that as well. And what we'll do is we'll put a series of these webinars in place so that we can keep coming out to you and talking to you and keep doing the same thing. So talking to you about what's happened already, what's happening in the next few months, then trying to have a look a little bit further down the line as well. Okay, so just to wrap up then, I just want to talk to you about our YouTube channel. People have asked about where the webinar recording is going to go. So it's on the @DFExec.com's channel, and you can see from the screen we've got 3 playlists. The recording of today's session will be in the Apprenticeship Service webinar recordings playlist, and that'll be in about 3 weeks, maybe 4 weeks time, once we've gone through, made it fully accessible and subtitled it and things like that. And we also have all of our support videos on the Using the Apprenticeship Service playlist, and other videos created to support the delivery of apprenticeships on the Apprenticeship Support Videos playlist as well. If you don't already, go and subscribe to that channel, click on the bell icon, and then you get alerts when new content is uploaded. And then finally, what I've done is on the slide, all of these places should be familiar to you. So it's just places where you can go for more information about apprenticeships and for more support. So you've got apprenticeships.gov.uk, you've got the Further Education and Training Providers Community, which is your peer-led discussion forum for providers. I've left the link on there for the how to register for our future webinars, and also by Monday you'll be able to access a recording of today's webinar from that link as well. So we'll make it on demand and available for about a month or so whilst we work to get the fully accessible version put up onto our YouTube channel. And then obviously, if you've got any specific queries about the apprenticeship service, you can always use the self-service support tool, or you can email the support team as well, and their contact details are on the slide as well. What we will do is when we email you in a few weeks' time, we'll have a handout for you that will attach all of those links to, so you get that as part of the post-webinar pack. Okay, so that's it. That's us for today. That brings us to the end of our session. Thank you so very much for joining us and sticking with us to the end. Thank you to my providers for all of their hard work and insights. And please, as you leave, complete the short survey and tell us what you thought of today. Bye, everybody. Have a wonderful rest of the day, and see ya.